Hello, welcome to Legal Action. My name is David Siegel. Thanks for joining us today. With my co-host Jesse Barrientos, we have a special guest, John Buckmiller from Attorneys Tax Relief. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we're coming up on tax season. People are worried about this. Some people are owing. Some people are thinking they're going to get a refund, but they're not if they owe the IRS money. So you're all about helping people deal with their tax problems. So can you kind of give us a state of the affairs right now with what's going on with the IRS?
Basically, the IRS is a big collection company, and they're trying to obviously collect the money that's owed to them from the taxpayers. Tax season's a big time for them to be sending out those threatening letters, so that's why Attorneys Tax Relief, our law firm, is there to help clients, guide them through and hold their hand through these IRS problems and letters that they're receiving around tax time.
Okay. Does the IRS, do they always send just regular mail? You hear about a lot of issues. I've heard about a lot of people getting emails that are kind of like scams. It's really not even from the IRS itself. So do they ever send things to you via email?
No, the IRS will never send anything to you via email. You'll always get some written correspondence from the IRS. So if you ever get an email or a phone call saying you pay today or you're going to go to jail, that's a scam company. Definitely avoid that company and look online, look on the radio, TV for a reputable tax firm that's going to be able to actually hold your hand through the process, educate you, and get the solutions you're looking for.
Okay, let's take the example of someone who is struggling financially and tax debt is one of their problems. What types of resolutions can you provide based on their circumstances?
Well, there's three main resolutions with the IRS, okay? The main one is the offer in compromise. That actually reduces your tax liability. The second program is currently non-collectible. That puts you into a place where the IRS cannot collect from you, but does not eliminate the debt completely, okay? The third program that the IRS offers is called installment agreement. That's a 72-month repayment plan back to the IRS with interest and penalties if you don't keep current with the payment plan.
Didn't you said the second plan was they just kind of put you off in a different category? But could you just, for my mind and the people at home too, a little bit more about that? Because that's sort of like saying, well, you have a debt, but you don't have a debt.
It's very deceiving, and the IRS is very good at deceiving the taxpayers. What currently non-collectible is basically saying that you're not collectible. The IRS cannot collect from you because you don't have enough or make enough money for them to collect. The debt doesn't go away, okay? The debt is set aside and they place a lien on your person or property to protect themselves in case you come into money along the way, get a more higher paying job, things of that nature. So they set the debt aside, place a lien on you, your person or property, so that if you ever get a better job making more money or you get a windfall of cash, such as a lottery win or an inheritance, the IRS would then step in, use that lien to be able to collect from you. So the debt does not go away with currently non-collectible. They just do not collect currently from you.
At that time. And I'm sorry, if I just to kind of follow up on that, is there any kind of, I guess we would call it in a different type of context, like a statute of limitations? I know, for example, regular judgments are good for 7 years, and then you have to kind of revive them. They're good for like 20 years, and then after, actually, I think you could probably get a total of maybe 27 years out of it, but after that, then you're done. Is there any such animal with respect
Jesse,
to...
I'm really glad you brought that up because a lot of our clients are calling in asking if there is that available, and there is. There's a 10-year statute of limitations on IRS tax debt. So if your tax debt is 10 years old, they're not going to collect it from you.
Does it mean that the debt is gone, or that they just can't? I mean, that's it.
The debt is eliminated after 10 years. Good. The IRS will no longer collect that debt from you if it's over 10 years old.
Okay. Let's take a situation where someone does have income, they do have assets, but they owe the IRS money, so they're not a non-collectible, and they also don't want to just enter into an installment payment plan because that's not going to really help them eliminate the debt. What is their best option to try and compromise the debt or pay less than what's owed and be able to breathe again?
Well, you just kind of said it briefly with compromise. The best program would be offer in compromise. And what that is you're offering an amount of money in lieu, in compromise of the actual debt that you owe. What we do to get a person qualified for an offer in compromise is we have to contact the IRS, determine exactly how much they owe, from what years they owe from. We then have to do a full financial review with the client, determining how much disposable income they have per month, what assets they actually do have, the values of property, values of cars, things of that nature. Then we actually do a calculation to determine what the IRS will accept in terms of a settlement offer. After that's calculated, if the client agrees with that offer, we'll present that to the IRS, okay? And it's about a 6 to 7 month process for them to review it before they say approved or rejected.
So is there a formula then that the IRS uses to determine what's an appropriate offer, or could it be any range?
The IRS definitely has a formula that they use, and it is on their website, but the website is very misleading. A lot of times they will disqualify you in hopes that the taxpayer will call into the IRS so the IRS can tell them to go into an installment agreement. So there are calculations, but they keep them close to the chest because they don't want people to know exactly how to calculate these offers. But the IRS code can't hide anything, and if you really dig into that code, you can find the bearings and the details that will allow you to calculate an acceptable offer to be approved by the IRS.
So it takes about 7 months. I mean, recently we just heard that the IRS kind of got cut short, and I'm not exactly sure what that means with their budget, and so they don't have all the resources, and again, that puzzles me, but is that going to have any kind of effect in terms of the time-wise that it's going to take to go through the process?
It may have a little impact on it, and the IRS is telling us every day that, hey, we got a lot of files, we're going to push this one back 120 days, 90 days, 60 days, so there is that happening. The IRS is backed up. They're the IRS, and a lot of people are trying to get approved for these programs. So they are backed up, but they are pretty quick with going through the process, and if you follow up with them and have a good relationship with the IRS, as we do, you can get your file approved much quicker than if you're just a lay person calling up the IRS by themselves.
And is that offer in compromise, is that like a lump sum kind of a situation?
It can be, Jesse. It can be a lump sum situation, but the IRS affords you 3 different options. Once the offer is accepted and approved by the IRS, you can either lump sum pay it, you can pay it within 5 months, or you can do a 24-month repayment. So they give you 3 options there to pay back the debt. You don't have to come up with that lump sum of cash to move forward with the IRS.
Awesome. That's great for the
Yeah,
folks to know
definitely,
that, yeah.
definitely for the...
John, once you've gathered all the information from the client and you've submitted the offer, you've put it through your software and your expertise, how confident are you that you can get that offer accepted once you submit it?
Dave, we're pretty confident. We know the IRS code like the back of our hand. We do these calculations on a daily basis, several times a day. Once we come to a number, we are very confident that that offer is going to be approved. Will it change a little? Maybe up $100 or $200 up or down, but pretty much when we submit an offer, we're confident that that offer is going to be approved by the IRS.
And a much greater likelihood than if they tried to do this themselves?
I'm glad you said that because a lot of our taxpayers call in and said that they've tried to do an offer in compromise by themselves and weren't successful. Then Attorneys Tax Relief took over the case and got it approved for them. So can people do this on their own? Yes, that's a big misconception. People call in and they're asking, hey, John, can I do this on my own? And I have to tell them yes, because I want to be ethical. Yes, you have to do this you can do this on your own, but again, you don't have sophisticated software. You don't know the IRS code book like the back of your hand like Attorneys Tax Relief does, and it's just much better having an attorney negotiate with the IRS rather than the individual taxpayer. Not that I'm saying someone couldn't get it approved by themselves, I'm just saying that we've seen a lot of success once we've taken over cases for taxpayers.
Right. These people that do it pro se, Jesse, it's just like people who want to do their own closing, their own divorce, their own lawsuit.
On bankruptcy.
Right. They do that at their own peril because they're not a professional who's dealing with this every day like you are. So it would make a lot of sense to get your expertise, to find out what the proper offer is, and then to heed your advice.
Well, even just to get somebody on the phone from the IRS, good luck, right? If you're trying on your own.
Well, yeah, hold wait on with the IRS is about an hour and a half to 2 hours just to get to someone. So there's definitely a value in our service.
You said before that there was, so we talked about so far 2 different avenues, right?
The non-collectible, offer
offer
compromise, and the third
then
one.
And the installment agreement. Installment agreement's the third one. People that go into an installment agreement are people that have significant disposable income. have assets that the IRS wants to take to pay the offer, things of that nature. But the IRS affords the opportunity to go into an installment agreement, which is a repayment plan of your entire debt. So let me remind you, Jesse, this isn't an offer in compromise. The debt's not getting reduced. And this isn't currently non-collectible because they're not setting aside the debt. This is an installment agreement where you're paying back the whole amount of liability that you owe the IRS over a 72-month period with interest.
Whoa, okay. That was going to be my next question with interest and penalties. What is the interest? Does it vary? Is there a set amount?
There's a set amount of interest per month per payment, okay? And there's an installment agreement fee that you have to pay just to get set up into an installment agreement of $120. And the interest gets spread out over 72 months. So you're paying 6 years of interest on a debt liability from maybe that stems from 1 or 2 years of liability. It's not a good plan, and the IRS wants taxpayers to go into that plan because obviously it's very profitable for the IRS to get people into installment agreements.
John, what are some of the ways that people get into tax problems? Because a lot of people are working for wages, the tax is being deducted by their employer and being sent to the IRS. So how are some of the ways that are people getting into trouble?
A lot of times they don't have the correct withholding. Okay, that happens a lot. 1099 employees, so the check's just written directly to the 1099 employee, and that 1099 employee is not taking taxes out and sending it to the IRS. At the end of the year, there's a big tax bill there because they'll do their taxes, see how much they made, and the IRS is going to want their share. Another way is when.
What about the 401k? Is that, we've seen some of that, right?
401k disbursements happen a lot with taxpayers. They don't understand that they have to pay a percentage of tax on their disbursement. Say they get into a hardship, like a lot of people are getting into right now with this economy and whatnot. People are going to their 401k for support to make ends meet month to month. Well, they take that money out and they think it's all theirs. It's really not. When you make a disbursement, you have to pay taxes to the IRS on that, and we're helping a lot of people in that position because a lot of our clients are taking disbursements due to the economy right now. However, we can work with them in terms of an installment agreement, currently non-collectible status, or offer in compromise.
You mentioned that's a good thing in terms of your pension or your 401k or whatever. Is there anything protected from the IRS?
No, I say that. Yes, there are certain accounts that are protected by the IRS, certain 401ks with the employer, but the employer has to have set that up a certain way. So 95% of investment accounts and retirement accounts can be levied or attached by the IRS. About 4 to 5% of accounts can't. However, they have to be set up very particularly when you're setting up those accounts.
To be able to
avoid
avoid
it from the IRS.
Does that IRS tax lien take precedence over something like, say, child support or maintenance?
Yes, it does. It's the number
over child support and maintenance.
Yes.
So before, Dave, you can you can get the money to feed, to take care of of little Tommy here, okay, and to be able to take care of your obligation, the IRS gets first dibs.
First dibs always. They're the biggest collection company in the United States of America, and they're planning on staying that way.
What about small business owners, John, that either are not withholding properly or maybe they're not paying the sales tax? Can they be touched individually even though they're running a corporation?
Yes, they can. They can be attacked by the IRS individually, and their business can have attachments by the IRS, place liens on their person, their business, and their business assets. A lot of small business owners get into trouble due to not paying their payroll tax. We see that's a big one. They just don't pay the correct income tax because they want to give themselves a raise. So small business owners are about 70% of our clientele.
Even if it's a corporation, I mean, the general deal is that the officers of a corporation aren't responsible for their corporate debt. There are some exceptions to that, but so are you saying that they are?
Yeah, they are.
That's what I thought I heard you say, and I just wanted to make sure I understood you.
They are liable. They are definitely liable.
Wow, Dave. What should a taxpayer do if they're behind on their taxes and unable to pay the IRS? So I already know that I'm not going to be able to pay. Maybe it's a situation like you said, I took something out of my retirement account or something like that, and it's like I just don't have the money.
And the hammer's going to hit you. You just haven't been
right.
prepared for it.
Yeah, I mean, do I give them a heads up and put myself on the radar? or?
If you can't, don't go ahead and just don't wait the sleeping dog just
Yeah.
yet. But if you owe the IRS and you're unable to pay the IRS and you don't know the IRS tax code like the back of your hand, you need to call an attorney and have them review your case, contact the IRS, look into your financials, and determine exactly what avenue would be the best for you to go with the IRS to clean up the situation, resolve the situation.
Now, John, you mentioned that offering compromise is probably the best way to eliminate a good portion of the debt. Can you talk about the compliance issues that you have to deal with as a taxpayer when you're in that program? Because that's a burden.
It is a burden, Dave, and I'm glad you brought it up because taxpayers are asking us every day, okay, now that I'm getting this offer and compromise, John, what do I have to do going forward? And it's not an easy task. Going forward, you have to stay compliant for a 5-year period. So 5 years, you have to file your taxes on time. You cannot run a balance with taxes. So if you're a small business owner, you have to be setting aside quarterly payments to send to the IRS once you're in an offer and compromise, because if you run a balance once in an offer and compromise, they will reject and pull the offer. That's why we have such a good monitoring system with our law firm, to where we're monitoring our clients month after month, year after year, to walk them through this 5-year painstaking process to get this approved.
So someone could feel good about their deal, and then all of a sudden, a year or two down the road, the deal's gone.
It could be taken away, ripped right out from under their feet, unless they stay compliant. But that's what we're there to do, hold your hand and make sure you're compliant, making the correct monthly payments to the IRS, filing your taxes, following up, not running a balances, doing bookkeeping, accounting for them. There's several things that are going on through this 5-year period. But again, you're getting a big break from the IRS. The IRS is reducing sometimes tens of thousands of dollars, so you're going to want to play ball with them and stay compliant.
You brought up something that I just kind of thought about when you were talking there, and that is, and this might seem like a silly question, I don't know, but if now the IRS taxes that I owe have been reduced by $50,000, do I have to pay taxes on that $50,000 that were reduced?
No, you do not. Anything forgiven is forgiven. There's not taxes on that. It's not like a mortgage principal reduction. When mortgage principal reduction, you will get taxed as a gross income. The IRS does not accept that as a feasible option. They reduce the debt. They give you what the balance is, and you pay the balance back interest-free. So that's when they don't tack on interest, is when you do get the offer approved, you either set it up and do a lump sum, a 6-month repayment, or a 24-month repayment, non-interest. So that is a good thing that the IRS is doing.
There's so many different companies out there that are advertising tax relief and tax services. How does a consumer differentiate between the different providers and to find out which ones are legitimate and really looking out for the taxpayer?
The taxpayer should immediately ask whoever they're talking to on the phone whether you're an attorney. All these tax companies out there have salesmen, people that didn't go to law school, that are acting as lawyers, giving legal advice over the phone. So that should be the very first question to a taxpayer: am I speaking with an attorney? And make that company answer, because the 99% of the time that company will say, no, I'm not an attorney. Then the next step is the client should say, can I speak with an attorney? 99% of the time that company will say no, they're hiding something. If they're not letting you speak to an attorney, they are hiding something. So next time you have tax debt, taxpayer, call up a law firm and ask them, am I speaking with an attorney? Can I speak with an attorney? And if you get negative responses to that, you should probably look somewhere else.
Right.
Also, you want to ask them, what kind of programs are you putting people into? If they say compliance programs, that'll tip you off right there that they're just going to try to put you into an installment agreement or currently non-collectible. Firms don't like to do offers and compromise because they're a lot of paperwork. Like we said, it takes 6-7 months. That's a lot of case monitoring. So a lot of law firms shy away from it due to the extensive work it takes. But the real help, the real product that helps the taxpayer is the offer and compromise.
Well, even longer than that, right, John? Because you said that you have to remain
5 years,
compliant
yeah,
for all that
5
other
years.
time after that.
And law firms don't want to be monitoring clients for 5 years. They want to be in and out, move on to the next one.
You're obviously proud of the fact that you're an attorney helping people because you've named the company Attorneys Tax Relief, so you're letting the consumer know right away, these are attorneys that are helping you, not a salesman force
Yes.
that might not know too much about the process.
We are attorneys, and we take great pride in getting these offers in compromise approved and doing the work that it takes to get these offers in compromise approved. Do we put people in installment agreements and currently non-collectible programs? Yes, but only when there's no other option.
Can you, if let's say, is it ever too late for me to call you? Okay, I mean, if man, the hammer comes down and all of my accounts are frozen, and I mean, is it
Well,
too
Jesse,
late for me?
that's when you do call. that's when you do want to call. If your accounts are frozen, if you're getting garnished, if your hands are tied behind your back, that's when you want to call Attorney's Tax Relief. We can stop the levy on your bank account. We can stop a garnishment. We can get you back in good graces with the IRS, get you paying them so that they're happy, and we'll get you in the right position and get you the resolution that you can afford and is good for either your business, your person, or your family.
Just as a kind of aside here in terms of just garnishment, because I would guess probably one of the first things they're going to go after perhaps is wages. Is there a certain percent of your disposable income that the IRS can garnish? I mean, without your help. I'm talking about here. We're going into the.
There's not a set percentage. I've seen the IRS garnish anywhere from 15% to 85% of a check. We've gotten calls to where it's the entire check has been taken by the IRS. So it puts our clients in very difficult positions to think that they're getting a check and it all being garnished by the IRS. The good news is that you can stop a garnishment, but you have to be compliant with the IRS in order to stop a garnishment. And what, in the IRS's eyes, what compliant means is that all your tax years are filed. So a lot of people will call into the firm that have a garnishment, but they owe 4 or 5 tax years. They didn't file tax years back in 2009 and 2011 and 2006. So the IRS is not going to work with you unless you are compliant. So we hurry up, get those tax years filed, and then I use my attorney professional courtesy and my relationship with the IRS to get that garnishment stopped.
So they can go back and file the old taxes, and
Yes,
that will get them compliant.
That will get them compliant. If a taxpayer has missed a few years of taxes, we can always go back and file that year. That will get them compliant, good graces in the IRS eyes, and we can move forward with the resolution.
Yeah, John, we got a couple questions. We just received an email from Kevin from Chicago. He says he owes about $18,000 to the IRS. He's currently unemployed. He does not own a vehicle, and he doesn't have any retirement of any kind. He does own a home, he states, worth $100,000, and he owes $50,000 on the balance. Can he qualify for an offer in compromise?
That's a tough one because it's going to hinge on a couple questions. Since he's unemployed, that automatically tells you, oh, great, he doesn't have money to pay back the IRS, so he probably qualifies. But based on your question, if you dig a little deeper, there is equity in that home of $50,000. So the only way that he would qualify for an offer in compromise, because the equity he owes is $50,000 and he only owes $18,000, so obviously there's enough equity there to pay off that offer. So the only way he would qualify for an offer in compromise is if he did not qualify for a refinancing of his mortgage to pull that cash out. So if we went to a couple lenders and they denied him a loan refinance on his home to pull out the equity, I could show that denial letter to the IRS, and the IRS then would approve him for an offer in compromise. That equity would be like it didn't even exist.
Well, couldn't the IRS just say, we're not going to accept the offer, we're going to put a lien against the house, and eventually, when you either sell, refinance, or die, we'll get our money?
The IRS can do that, but if you go through the resolution processes, they will release that lien. If you go through the offer and compromise process and you prove to them that you can't refinance that home to pay them, they will go through the process with you because it's their code. They've made the rules, remember, on this, and they will approve that offer and compromise.
I think it even gets even worse than that. It's a matter of collecting judgments too, so they could even, I believe, foreclose on the property. And I'm just guessing that their lien would take priority over everything
Yeah,
else.
I think that would be against public policy to
well,
actually
but that's
put
a
somebody
judgment.
out of their house.
They can, to pay maintenance and to pay child support last on the list. That's not against public
Yeah.
policy. So
The IRS will wait, though,
I'm not,
on a house.
yeah.
They'll wait. They'll get it. So,
All right, another email from Thomas from Carroll Stream. Says he owes $15,000 to IRS. He's currently making about $30,000 a year. He has a 2000 Honda Accord with about 150,000 miles on it. And currently rent and has maybe $10,000 in his 401k, does he qualify for any type of tax relief?
Again, that 401k sitting there is going to kill his offer. He has 401k assets, so the IRS is going to make you deplete those assets to pay them. You're only going to be able to get a percentage because there is a penalty to take money out. So the IRS is only going to look at that $10,000 as around $6,800 to $7,200 as actual value. So his offer, yes, he will qualify for an offer in compromise, but he's going to have to deplete his entire 401k to pay them that amount, and then all the other liability will be dissolved.
But then he'll also have to pay the penalty for taking his money out of the 401k. That's what you're talking
the
about.
IRS values that 10 grand at around 6,800 to 7,000 because of the penalty.
Are there ever situations, John, where you just say, look, tax resolution is not going to be a good option for you, but maybe a bankruptcy would be, or vice versa?
Yes, there are some times where a Chapter 13 is a better option for the client. Sometimes Chapter 13 helps put all the tax debt into one lump sum and then paid back over time, and that's no interest as well. So it's a little better than an installment agreement because there's no interest, but technically it is another installment agreement, just no interest with the Chapter 13 bankruptcy. So what the client needs to decide is, do they want to take the credit hit with the Chapter 13 and not pay interest, or not take a credit hit and pay the installment agreement with interest? That's the client's decision.
Some people are afraid of bankruptcy. They don't want that on the report. They don't think they'll be able to buy a house or a car or anything in the future. So
that's when resolution's more of an attractive option for the client at that point.
But they're in a Chapter 13. Are they going to have to pay back their total amount of the debt?
Yes, with taxes, with Chapter 13, yes, they're going to have to pay that back. Only credit card debt and things of that nature are going to be dissolved with the Chapter 13, and not completely, as we know, only a percentage.
it must feel good, John, to see somebody who's struggling financially, overwhelmed with debt, whether it be a levy or a garnishment or the numerous letters that the IRS sends to taxpayers, to take them from that situation into almost a euphoric relief that they've either eliminated a lot of the debt or got into a manageable plan. That must be enjoyable for you as an attorney to help people in that regard.
It is enjoyable, but there is a little bit of a client emotional roller coaster. Initially, when the client calls in, they feel great relief because we've taken over the case. But due to the amount of time it takes to get approved, the client starts getting cold feet. Hey, am I really going to be able to release this entire amount of debt? This is a lot of debt. You guys are a lot of liability. You guys are dissolving. And then they go through the process where it does get approved, and then the euphoric feeling, and that's when it's happy and it's fun to do this job. It's fun to dissolve debt that people owe and the liability to help families, move forward and help their family.
Let me ask you, is there a difference between, we've talked about a lien and a levy. Is there a difference between?
A levy is a taking of your money out of a bank account. That's what a levy. Levy equals taking, okay? A lien is put in place so that you can't sell, convey a piece of property or do any transactions without the IRS knowing. So in essence, yes, it is different because a lien does not take the money out of your account, however a levy does.
Okay, well, that's awesome.
Information.
Yeah. Well, John, it's been a pleasure to have you. This is John Buckmiller from Attorneys Tax Relief, along with Jesse Barrientos, my co-host. My name is David Siegel. We'll see you next time on Legal Action. Take care.
Thank you.